that if a kid coming out of high school wants money, he should be able to sign pro. Baseball, basketball, whatever. He should not be coerced into a year that he may be serious about his academics, but it's kind of looked like these kids are just, they may go to class the first semester to stay eligible, but, not really put their arms around an educational opportunity. And that would vary from school to school as well. There are some schools that would hold a more stronger desire for this kid to have, be a graduate of Notre Dame or Ivy League or whatever. It's not. I don't think it's going to last. I don't think they're going to make the kids go through this. For the pros, it's wonderful. These kids play a year. Let's take Zion Williamson. He lit up a country and promotion, and then he slides into the NBA. Wow, that's called marketing. I think if they want to go pro, they can go pro. They can go in Europe. All over the world now, China, you can be a professional basketball player without having to sit in a classroom for a year twiddling your thumbs. Yep. So I do think that will end. That's my bet.
Good bet. First of all, they got the G League. I think is being receptive to it. If that doesn't work, Australia is starting to bring in some of the top-notch talent to complement Europe. So, I'm definitely agree with you there. That the one and done is probably will be one and none. Knowing that I think that this thing ultimately gets itself resolved. All right, obviously the big event tonight happens to be the Champions Classic. They're doing the 9th year of this whole thing. Michigan State, Kentucky, you talked about Kansas Dukes. And I think the thing that intrigued me the most, Bucky, is when you told me that you have 56 Final Fours, 18 national championships, and in this party, UNC was excluded. What are your thoughts about all of that? I said a mouthful.
Well, I think you can certainly make a case for the University of North Carolina. Who made these selections? I don't know. Again, you look at marketing, television. If Duke and North Carolina are 8 miles apart, these other schools are more distant. They could be. We don't want everybody in one neighborhood. I don't know, but the choice was made. And, if I'm a Carolina fan, I'm a little disappointed not to be included. I don't have their stats right in front of me, Scott, but their record in the Final Fours and national championships is very strong, very impressive. But these are the 4 that they have chosen. And as you point out, they've had a marvelous run. The 18 national titles and 56 Final Fours, and they stay consistent. That's the big thing. This year, the preseason Final Four teams were the Champions Classic. Michigan State 1, Kentucky 2, Kansas 3, and Duke 4. That's amazing, and here they are playing in the tournament. Last year, Duke opened the season with Kentucky, and they had a really young team. They had 3 first-round NBA drafts. But you talk about taking these kids, 18 years old, and I think they played in Atlanta. I'm not sure, but it's always on a neutral floor. And you throw these kids out, and they took Kentucky to the woodshed, which just blew everybody away. Duke actually played stronger earlier in the year than they did later in the year. And who can explain that? That's why coaches get white hair.
Yeah, well, Duke obviously beat Kentucky at their own game with the one and done since Calipari made it famous. And Coach Krzyzewski went ahead and adapted when he had to. With that said, we'll transition from that to Duke against Michigan State in the Big Ten ACC Challenge on my wife Candy's birthday on December the 3rd. So Michigan State obviously TKO'd Duke in last year's NCAA tournament. Why don't you size up that matchup early on?
Well, let me take a step back. The conference challenge that first began, it was the Big East and the ACC. And the ACC so dominated it that the Big East coaches said, you know what, I don't think it's such a good idea to open the season as we do with the ACC. So they withdrew. And as soon as they did, the Big Ten jumped in there, and that's been going on now. What did I say? 18 years, something like that. Right. And it's been a wonderful thing. We don't want to start the season too early, but we don't want the early part of the season to be a whole bunch of cupcakes before you really get to the competition. And right now, that Classic has done that. The Big Ten ACC challenge now is a good thing. It's being controlled a little bit by the ACC, but it's close. And it varies from year to year. But the irony of that game on December the 3rd, it was Michigan State that took Duke out of the NCAA tournament last year. The Spartans are good. They are good. And they got a great guy running the show.
Yeah, I really respect Tom Izzo for scheduling the quality of opponents early in the year, where a lot of coaches would like to pile up wins. Tom Izzo's not afraid to take on anybody on any neutral court, home court, yep, away court. And I think a lot of coaches need to go ahead and follow that lead. I mean, Coach K obviously does, and Calipari, but there's a lot of coaches that can afford to improve their strength of schedule, especially later on in the year when the tournament committee goes ahead and takes that into consideration, Bucky.
Here's the thing you might find interesting. Krzyzewski schedules the Division II national champion in the exhibition season for, I think, 11 straight years now. He wants good competition. They played Montana State to open the season in their first exhibition. It was a 6-point game. Because there were no NBA players on Montana State, but those guys were good. They played together for seniors and juniors. They won their league. I think that they might have been undefeated the year before. So Krzyzewski wants to bring in good talent to get his team ready. And that game, that 6-point win that they could have lost, they really could have lost it. That meant more to developing these guys into being able to beat Kansas tonight in the Garden than the 50-point victory they had over Fort Valley State. They were up 19-0 in that one, and that's just a cupcake. That's just that the fans, they yawn and they go to sleep. They're used to ACC competition, and that's a war.
All right, let's talk about Coach K's grandson. He's a walk-on, Mike Savarino. I know you like talking to it, but you were telling me that you believe that Coach K will coach 4 more years because his grandson got in the game. So why don't you go ahead and tell me, what are your thoughts about the fact that Coach K, it's one thing that he has a record that'll never be broken, but add another, tack on 4 more years to a record that nobody will touch in 9 million lifetimes.
Well, certain, as we pointed out, they are playing more games now. And I can't come up with a name right now, but there are coaches in their early 60s that are, have really incredible run. And if they can coach more years with more games, they'd have a chance to catch and maybe surpass Mike's record. But, the big question here is, how long is he going to coach? Who's going to replace him? And when his grandson, who played in the local high school here, Michael Savarino, he's a nice player. He's a nice high school player. I don't think he had any scholarship offers. I would be shocked if he did. He's a nice high school player, and he came to Duke as a walk-on. And Mike Krzyzewski is the ultimate family man. He's got a big family. They're close. They're everything he has ever done, and he's been in this town 40 years. And let me tell you, when you got Carolina 8 miles away, NC State 20 miles away, you're walking every day on eggs because there are people watching you, and if you stutter, it's a story. Okay, that's pressure, and he has well surpassed all of that. Great family. And I got to tell you, from where I was sitting, he got in the game, and the student body picked up on it. They started roaring. Cameron's crazy enough as it is, but they just really took over, and the kids stepped up. Michael did. He stepped up, and he made a great pass for hit an open jump shot, and he missed the shot, I think. But then he went to the free throw line and he made both free throws pure. And I was sitting in an angle watching Coach K, and you could see he couldn't hide it. It was a grandfather looking at his kid and with pride. It was made my eyes leak. It was something to see. Is he going to win a game for him this year? I don't think so. He only got in the game because there was a 50-point lead, and I think that will hold up. But the fact that he's there, they're together, I wouldn't, I think it's a factor in his continuing. To my knowledge, Coach K has no health problems now. Like me, he's had hips and knees, and he's had all the usuals at old age, but he's very frisky and he's very health conscious. I don't see a reason for him to walk away. But then, I haven't done it for 40 years.
All right, well, now that we've had a chance to talk about these things, what we're going to do, Bucky, is for the last 10 minutes or so, we're going to celebrate Bucky Waters, okay? And here's how we're going to do it. You obviously played 18 years of college basketball as a player and a coach, and I know you participated in 5 NCAA tournaments, 3 NIT tournaments, and 2 Final Fours, and I know you had a nice record of 133 and 96. I obviously do my homework. Why don't you reflect back on your 18 years of college basketball as a player, as a coach, before we get into your broadcasting?
Okay. Boy, we got 10 minutes to do all this?
Well, you know what?
Yeah, I'm kidding.
I know.
Let me quickly start in high school. I was in the Camden high school system, and my parents sacrificed and moved a short distance to move into another Collingswood area, which was it was 2 miles. But it was a different school system. And my high school coach was Jack McCluskey, who later went on, and we coached against each other when he coached at Wake Forest. And he was the general manager of the Detroit Pistons when they were the bad boys, right, kicking Michael Jordan's butt, okay? He was my high school coach. That was one gift. So then I went with Everett Case and Vic Bubas at North Carolina State. And he's, both of them Hall of Famers. I was just exposed to greatness. The Lord had his hand on me the whole way. And I was just a slow white jersey guard, not that great. But when Vic Bubas got the Duke job, he hired me at 23 years of age. I just coached 1 year in high school. And the first player I had on my freshman team was Art Heyman, a really great player out of New York City that was a handful. And he became College Player of the Year. We did so well under Vic Bubas. We went to 3 Final Fours in 4 years. And that's incredible. We couldn't win the son of a gun, but we were there at the top of the heap. And with that, just because of him and what we accomplished, West Virginia University, the Red Brown was the athletic director. He hired me, never having been a head coach. The people in the state of West Virginia said, "What? Who?" As one of those, he had guts, and he believed in me. And he told me, he said, "You don't just coach basketball here. Basketball to West Virginians is their everything. If there's a mine disaster, they're going to expect you to be there. It's a year-round commitment, and you're the target for their joy, for their letdown." So that was heavy. That was really heavy. And we had the first integrated team, which I can't go into great detail except to say that I had great kids. On the road, it was tough, but at home, the West Virginians embraced us, and it was just a great experience. Our first year, we played against Duke. My everything, Vic Bubas, and looking at the players in the warm-up, and same guys that were in the Final Four with me, now we're against each other, and we beat them. They were number 1 and undefeated. And then we beat North Carolina. And at the end of the year, they had a tradition there about going to the Greenbrier if they won the tournament, and that was in jeopardy. They said, "Yeah, but that's before you had African-American players." Well, God bless West Virginia. We won the tournament. We went. There was never an issue. I came back to Duke, and it was during the time of Vietnam and Kent State. Everything changed. The attitude of